Haters, doubters, skeptics, and everyone else who watches this series, the day is here. The Potato Masher cannot match the PS4 in Shadow of the Tomb Raider at any logical combination of resolutions and settings. Oh right, some of you probably don't know what the Potato Masher is. Back in late 2014, I built a PC for about what used PS4s were going for at the time to compare the budget PC versus console experience for the rest of the PS4's lifecycle. At first, the Potato Masher unquestionably cleaned up in pretty much every comparison. It has more raw power, and in no surprise to everyone, PCs offer more flexibility than consoles. However, the longer, more relevant test is how the Masher would hold up over the rest of the PS4's lifecycle once all of its components were even older and less supported, and the PS4 had the advantage of several more years of developers learning the ins and outs of optimizing for the system. Over the past year, the Masher has racked up a few wins, but just as many ties, which is a big difference from the first couple years of the comparison. While there's nothing really on the line and this series is just meant for fun and education, the tide is starting to turn, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider may be one of the first AAA games that launches without any major problems on either system, but is unquestionably better on the PS4. Let's dig in and see why that is. In many areas, the Masher and PS4 offer comparable experiences. Character models, textures, overall scene complexity like draw distances and pop-in, all consistent. But, fitting for the game's name, the biggest issues are shadows and lighting. Simply put, the lowest settings for shadows and lighting aren't comparable to the PS4, and the next quality levels are too demanding for the Masher's GTX 760, so my choice was either comparable or slightly better visuals but low 20s, or 30 FPS with crummy visuals. Since I consider consistent frame rates below 30 FPS to be completely unacceptable, low settings it is. At those settings, the game disappoints. Well, that's not entirely fair. It looks fine as long as you're viewing it on your own. We're well past the point where most modern games look at least presentable at pretty much any combination of settings. However, when you compare these shots to the PS4, it's immediately obvious that the PS4's ambient occlusion, shadows, and overall lighting is superior. Since there's no one setting for lighting quality, some combination of bloom and volumetric lighting must produce these results, right? Well, I'm honestly not sure. This might be one of the games that has some hidden adjustments that are affected by seemingly non-related settings like an overall base quality setting or something similar. You'll see what I mean in a bit, but take a look at this comparison footage. The Masher looks fine, but the PS4 looks better. The dark mood and sense of depth in the PS4's footage is what the game's creative team intended, whereas the Masher looks like the Switch version. No offense to Switch ports. To top it off, the frame rate drops quite a bit. The variety of set pieces in the game result in a 20 to 40% swing in GPU usage, resulting in frequent frame rate drops in some scenes that mean that even at these settings, the frame rate can't match the PS4. So, time to get drastic. Normally this section is reserved for trying out 1440p or 4K, but today we're trying 900p. Now, here's where the skeptic in me comes out. The PS4's resolution for this game is officially 1080p, and usually I'd agree that, whatever it is officially is probably what they're running. However, in some scenes it does look a bit soft, and it's definitely maintaining its frame rate better than the Masher. Usually I'd assume there was some dynamic resolution scaling at work. The PC version offers resolution scaling, but it isn't dynamic, and for no apparent reason I can see, that's only an option in windowed mode. Not borderless windowed, just regular windowed mode, so in my opinion that's not an option either. Since the graphic options don't give me as fine a level of control as I'd need to dial in the visuals and performance, will hacking off a significant number of pixels help? Yes, but not enough. At these settings, the Masher's visuals are softer than the PS4, which you'd expect for 900p, but a closer match otherwise. Bloom lighting still isn't on, and by itself, volumetric lighting doesn't do as much as I'd like. Again, going back to my skepticism, in this scene and many others, there appear to be other differences in lighting that aren't tied to one particular setting. The PS4 just looks better. Maybe there's a bug in the PC version that's making several settings not work correctly. It's happened before, so that could make sense. Or the PS4 just isn't using analogs to the PC's settings, meaning developers were able to fine-tune an experience that isn't realistically possible on budget PC hardware unless we get some more options to toggle. Also, the frame rate still isn't a perfect 30. It was much more stable, but there were a few drops. So what's the problem? Is the Masher too old or too weak? I don't think so. It's doing just fine in most games. Shadow of the Tomb Raider isn't just a poorly optimized port either, and we've seen those before. It generally scales well and it offers consistent performance. I think the Masher's problem comes down to two things. First, this is a modern, demanding game that's trying to set a high visual bar just like the two previous games in the series. PC versions of games tend to surge ahead at the end of console generations since hardware never stops being released and gamers are hungry for what's new and exciting. Second, the available options start at decent looking and scale up to beautiful. There aren't enough steps in between or low-end options to let me pick up enough frames to make the lighting and shadows trade-off I'd need to equal the PS4. Enterprising budget gamers can probably get busy with some any tweaks to optimize the game settings themselves, and of course, if low-spec gamer makes a video with a bunch of tips, maybe I'll try this again, but for this series I generally stick to what's available in the out-of-the-box experience. The PS4 racks up a well-earned win, and the Masher will just have to try again next time. A big thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon, and if you'd like to, check out the description. Also check out the Potato Masher Pro and the Xbox One X playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider when it releases in a few days. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and let's continue the conversation down in the comments. Have a great day.